The day I decided to break up with Jiang Junyan, a torrential rain poured down. I had just come out of surgery. He walked beside me holding an umbrella. His steps hurried. He walked so fast that he didn't even glance back at me, leaving me to get soaked in the rain. My high-heeled shoe got stuck in a drain grate. As I struggled helplessly in the rain, he tapped his wristwatch at me through the downpour, and those Italian custom-made leather shoes remained firmly planted just a few steps away. Standing there at a distance, suddenly, I felt utterly exhausted. 3 years into the relationship, he had never once waited for me while walking. I was always chasing after him, watching his hurried back. Just the other day, I saw him deliberately slow his pace while walking with his first love. There was nothing overly intimate between them, yet they were exceptionally close and tender, perhaps in these 3 years. I was never the one truly cherished. Jiang Junyan doesn't know how exhausting it is to keep chasing after someone, so this time, I choose to let go. 1. As the late autumn evening wind swept past, the thermal container in my arms grew cold. I stood rooted to the spot, unable to take a single step forward. Before him, Jiang Junyan was walking shoulder to shoulder with a girl along the path of the inpatient department. He glanced slightly to the side. Even the fitted white coat couldn't hide how he stood out in a crowd. That girl, I had seen her before, in Jiang Junyan's phone gallery. She was his first love, Zhou Shiyuan. Back then, he had only casually explained, we dated in college. Later, she went abroad to study, and we broke up. His tone was calm, without a ripple of emotion, but now, as he walked beside her, his eyes stirred with feeling. There was no excessive indiscretion between them, yet they were exceptionally intimate and tender. I don't know when Zhou Shiyuan returned to the country, nor do I care to find out exactly what she said. The smile in Jiang Junyan's eyes never faded. I only noticed that when walking with her, Jiang Junyan deliberately slowed his pace. Jiang Junyan is very tall and usually walks fast. When I walk with him, he always strides quickly ahead on his own. He never holds my hand, nor has he ever waited for me, but at this moment, he noticed the faint flush on Zhou Shiyuan's face from her heavy breathing, deliberately slowing down to match her pace. He was waiting for her. A faint, piercing ache rose in her chest. Over the past 3 years, I've protested more than once, asking him to wait for me when we walk. He's always been so cold, indifferent to my feelings, uncaring about what I think, but he would just rub his temples, looking helpless and impatient. Jiang Yan, can you stop being so unreasonable? Just because I walk fast means I don't love you. If that's what you insist on thinking, then there's nothing I can do about it. Every argument ended with a hasty conclusion that I was overthinking things, and for 3 whole years, I believed his dismissive explanations, fooling myself all along. Now, every deliberate slowdown in Jiang Junyan's pace feels like a slap in my face. Maybe in these 3 years of dating, I never truly had his devotion. Amid their laughter, Zhou Shiyuan reached out and touched the wristwatch on Jiang Junyan's arm. After all these years, you still keep it. The silver watch gleamed with a cold light. Jiang Junyan never lets me touch this watch, except when we are kissing in bed or caught up in passion. He carefully takes it off and places it on the nightstand. At all other times, it never leaves his body, but right now, he lets Zhou Shiyuan run her fingers over the engraving on the inside of the strap. I let out a long breath and look up, trying my hardest not to let the tears fall. The corner of Jiang Junyan's eye finally notices me. His expression freezes for a moment. He furrows his brow at the thermos in my arms. Jiang Yan, why are you here? 2. In the office, only Jiang Junyan and I remained. Zhou Shiyuan had long been sent away by him, an instinctive act of protection on his part. The window was open, and a draft blew through. After being soaked in tears, my eyes stung and ached with the wind. After a brief silence, he turned around and let out a sigh. Shiyuan and I are colleagues now. Don't overthink it. I remained silent, saying nothing. Here's your borscht. I'll be going now if there's nothing else. Jiang Junyan's face went blank for a moment. My order, weren't you the one who specifically asked for it last night? Last night, out of the blue, he asked me if I knew how to make borscht. I had no idea why. Still, I found a video and carefully learned how to make it. Jiang Junyan suddenly remembered, and frowned. It was Shiyuan who wanted some borscht and asked if I knew any good places. I was just asking casually. He turned around, picked up the work log from the desk, and flipped through it casually, as if I didn't exist. He spoke indifferently. If there's no reason, don't come to the hospital so often. A dull, crushing sensation pressed against my heart, making it hard to breathe. Suddenly, I didn't want to keep pretending anymore. Is telling me not to come to the hospital so often your way of keeping me from interrupting your reunion with Zhou Shiyuan? For example, today, Jiang Junyan's brows and eyes turned cold. His hand freezing midair as he flipped through the report. "What's wrong with you now?" He looked at me coldly, as if I were a stranger. "Think whatever you want. Between Shiyuan and me, the innocent have nothing to prove." He had always been measured and rarely lost his temper, yet now he had lost his composure over Zhou Shiyuan. As the standoff continued, Zhou Shiyuan pushed the door open, carrying a stack of documents. "Zhu Jinian, about tomorrow's surgery." Seeing the tears welling up in my eyes, she pretended to be apologetic and at a loss. "Am I interrupting you too?" At the sight of Zhou Shiyuan entering, the expression on Jiang Junian's face noticeably softened. "Not at all, she's leaving right away." With a rueful smile, I turned and left. From inside the office, their voices drifted out. "Your girlfriend brought you dinner." Jiang Junian didn't answer, but silently allowed Zhou Shiyuan to open the insulated container. "Borscht." Zhou Shiyuan raised an eyebrow, a flicker of pride and delight in his eyes. "I haven't eaten either." "You don't mind if I join you, do you?" Jiang Junian didn't respond. He simply walked to the door, gave me a heavy, deep look, and closed it. 3. I went home alone. When I arrived, the night had grown deep, and the vast house was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. I stood by the window when my phone suddenly rang. It was a birthday wish my mom had recorded for me in advance. "Yin Yin, today is your 27th birthday. Mom wishes you a happy birthday." Counting the days. "You and Xiao Jiang have been together for 3 years now. Are you married? Are you happy?" "Mom isn't here, so remember to always love yourself." Mom's warm voice echoed through the empty room. I reached out and turned it off, my nose tingling with emotion. My encounter with Jiang Junian began with a blind date. Back then, Mom was nearing the terminal stage of cancer and had always regretted not seeing me start a family. I didn't really have much interest in dating. I just wanted to make Mom happy and go through the motions. When I met Jiang Junian, his cold and reserved demeanor only reinforced my belief that this was a reluctant performance forced upon both of us. To my surprise, after that meeting, Jiang Junian suddenly began to pursue me fervently. He knew my mother was sick, so he introduced me to good doctors, helped me decipher lab reports I couldn't understand, and taught me how to ease her pain through massage. Those long, bleak nights, warped by the smell of disinfectant, gradually became filled with hope in his company. In my mother's final moments, he confessed his feelings to me, promising to take care of me for a lifetime. I nodded tearfully, and through my tear-blurred eyes, I overlooked the calm stillness beneath his gaze, as if he were simply completing a task. Not long after we started dating, he suddenly began staying out all night and grew extremely distant. That was when I first learned of Zhou Shiyuan's existence, because Zhou Shiyuan, far away across the ocean, had reconnected with him that night. He suffered from a rare bout of insomnia, leaning against the balcony railing, the tip of his cigarette glowed red in the darkness. Then he posted a WeChat moment visible only to Zhou Shiyuan. "I'm stubborn with my words, but I've never said I didn't want to wait for you." For Jiang Junian didn't return home until later that night, carrying a damp chill with him. The bedroom door was left ajar. I slightly closed my eyes, pretending to be fast asleep. He didn't remember my birthday. Instead, he tugged off his tie and tossed it carelessly onto the floor, holding his phone to his ear while chatting with a friend. "Look at you. Back then, you and Shiyuan were so in love, and yet you had to go and break up. Tell me about yourself." "You and Shiyuan were clearly deeply in love back then, yet you insisted on breaking up." "Well, now she's back, and you're about to start a family. Her return this time is clearly aimed at you. What are you going to do about it?" He leaned back on the sofa, his profile silhouetted against the dim light, looking particularly desolate. After a long silence, he finally spoke slowly. "I don't want to trap her in the cage of marriage too soon. She's a bird meant to fly. She should see the world first, and then decide where to land on her own. As for Jiang Yan," my breath caught, "she is virtuous. My parents have always hoped that I would start a family soon, so I followed their wishes and went on blind dates, eventually finding a filial daughter-in-law that they were hoping for. I am already engaged to her. The rest of my life is nothing more than marrying her and having children. I will continue to play along in this act." His voice was extremely calm, devoid of any emotion. Something inside him snapped with a sharp twang, completely breaking apart. In the past, I would deduce from the smallest things, searching for evidence that he loved me, even though he never remembered my birthday, even though he never waited for me while walking, even though he rarely cared about my thoughts or feelings. But I still recall his steady, reliable shoulders in my hardest moments, the lingering warmth of his fingertip as it brushed the corner of my eye, his reckless, unskilled kisses on the night we got engaged. I always find excuses and justifications for him now that the fierce tide of love has ebbed. I have to admit, what he called love was nothing more than a reluctant performance, a calculated act. He never truly loved me throughout this relationship. He was always at ease, measured in every advance and retreat, and I kept running away, covering my ears and pretending to be happy. 5. That night, I ran a fever and slept poorly. When I woke in the morning, the space beside me was already empty. Jiang Junyan was tying his tie at the entrance, his expression indifferent. The discarded engagement rings lay forgotten in a corner, gleaming coldly. It suddenly struck me that he hadn't worn the pair for quite some time. He used to put them on just to humor me, but ever since Zhou Shiyuan returned, the ring on his ring finger had vanished, leaving behind only a fading tan line. Love in its absence, too obvious to ignore. Jiang Junyan turned and caught sight of me frozen on the stairs. Acting on some inexplicable impulse, he walked over and gently ran his hand through my hair. For a fleeting moment, my heart stirred, but the moment a message popped up on her phone, her expression quickly reverted to indifference. It was a message from Zhou Shiyuan. "I'm heading to work." Only when the roar of a car engine echoed through the yard did I snap back to reality. Suddenly, I felt weary. 3 years into the relationship, the deliberate intimacy and affection before leaving the house were put on display every day, but I had never truly felt any sweetness. It felt more like pacifying a business partner. Over these 3 years, Jiang Junyan hasn't treated me too badly. After we got engaged, he voluntarily handed over his salary card and let me spend as I wished. I didn't have to worry about the household chores, big or small. He took care of everything. Whenever I casually mentioned wanting something, he would agree, rarely ever refusing. On the surface, everything seemed fine, but there was just one thing off. We were too polite and distant with each other, so much so that there was no real affection from him, just going through the motions. The past between him and Zhou Shiyuan is something I can never be part of, an unbridgeable chasm I can never cross. Since there's no love, why hold on any longer? Perhaps letting go is easier than holding on. 6. The autumn rain falls ceaselessly, carrying a desolate chill. Since I started work this morning, I've had a dull ache in my lower abdomen. Now, standing by the printer, I find myself gradually unable to straighten up. Just as I was about to lose consciousness, I had no choice but to call Jiang Junyan. Several calls I made went unanswered. It wasn't until a colleague called an ambulance for me and helped me onto the stretcher that my phone finally let out a ding. It was a message from Jiang Junyan. In a meeting, the message was brief, as terse as always, no extra concern or greeting. Seems he really was busy. At the hospital, overhead lights flashed past the corners of my eyes, sweat soaking through the blue fabric of the stretcher as I weakly opened my eyes. With just one glance, I recognized Jiang Junyan. He was gently and softly explaining a surgical case to Zhou Shiyuan, completely focused. The two of them stood very close, with Zhou Shiyuan leaning affectionately against his chest. So this was what he called a meeting. As the wheels of the stretcher rolled, nearly hitting Zhou Shiyuan, he naturally pulled her gently into his arms, holding her close. It was only when the hem of his white coat brushed against my hanging arm that he instinctively turned his head. Shock flashed in his eyes, and his Adam's apple bobbed. I gave a faint, mocking smile, closed my eyes, and looked away from him. When I woke up again, I was already in the hospital room. Jiang Junyan, dressed in a white coat, stood at the foot of the bed, his tall figure facing away from me. Sensing that I was awake, he walked over, pinched the bridge of his nose, and immediately began to reproach me. "What's going on? You had appendicitis and didn't even tell me." Perhaps seeing how pale I was, his tone softened slightly. "Don't you know it can be fatal if it gets serious?" I didn't look at him, just stared silently at the ceiling. "You were in a meeting, and Zhou Shiyuan, inside the room." Jiang Junyan froze for a second, then shoved his hands into his pockets, his expression dark. "Shiyuan and I are no longer on the same path. There won't be anything between us anymore." His brows carried barely concealed disdain and impatience. "Jiang Yan, throwing too many tantrums really gets on people's nerves." 7. For several days in a row, Jiang Junyan was nowhere to be seen. A few days later, during the ward round check, it was Zhou Shiyuan who came to help me. She clutched the medical record folder to her chest, the rose gold watch on her wrist jingling softly as she moved. It was the Same couples watch she wore with Jiang Junyan. Miss Jiang is recovering well. You should be able to leave the hospital soon. She lowered her gaze to record the readings, the tip of her pen scratching crisply against the paper. At the party last night, Junyan had too much to drink. I was the one who took him home. Such a pity. I was also the one who reminded him about his early meeting this morning. My hand, which had been searching for a moving company's number, paused mid-motion, slowly. I lifted my gaze to look at her. Being with Jiang Junyan must feel wonderful, doesn't it? She snapped the medical record book shut with a sharp smack, the corners of her lips curling into a subtle arc. After all, when we were together, he was both clingy and caring. Back then, if I casually mentioned wanting to try that trendy cake, he'd stand in line all night just to buy it for me. Even the slightest headache or fever would worry him terribly. He couldn't wait to take me to the hospital. He even had to hold my hand while driving. Isn't that ridiculous? Yeah, pretty ridiculous. Jiang Junyan had given Zhou Shiyuan nothing but the very best. He feels bad that Zhou Shiyuan has to take the subway, complains that she doesn't eat on time, and when he sees a place with beautiful scenery, he thinks of taking her on a trip. But toward me, there's only endless indifference and coldness. Zhou Shiyuan stood up, gave me a slight smile, full of arrogance and smugness. Once a man gives away all his love, he has no love left to give. There's no way around it. In love, order matters. Miss Jiang, you'll have to make do. 8. On the day I was discharged from the hospital, it started to rain. Jiang Zhu came to pick me up. The car was parked in the surface lot. He stood under the eaves with an umbrella, waiting for me. As I approached, he reached out to take my bag, but I dodged and refused. A flicker of surprise crossed his face. His thin lips pressed into a straight line, his Adam's apple bobbed. Several times before he finally spoke, a few days ago, the province suddenly assembled an expert team. I wasn't at the hospital. The umbrella tilted abruptly, the rain cutting a harsh shadow across his eyes. I gave a faint pulling my coat tighter around me. Without asking about the night he got drunk and Zhou Shiyuan brought him home, things had come to this. He didn't want to bring it up. And I no longer had the urge to dig deeper. Seeing that I remained silent, the veins on the back of Jiang Junyan's hand gripping the umbrella handle stood out. Do we really have to make a scene right now? Ignoring him, I simply felt exhausted. Let's go. Jiang Junyan walked as fast as ever, his usual hurried pace, never minding how hard it was for me to keep up. Gradually, I fell behind. The rain quickly soaked my clothes, the chill seeping into my bones. Still, Jiang Junyan failed to notice my sorry state, his steps growing ever faster. Then I suddenly recalled the scene the other day, when he was taking a stroll with Zhou Shiyuan, the way he deliberately slowed his pace for her, step by step, each one landing hard on my heart. The heel of my high heel got stuck in a drainage grate, and a dull pain shot through my ankle. I struggled to bend down, but caught a glimpse of Jiang Junyan, dozens of meters away, already by the car, tidying his cuffs with his head lowered. The moment he lifted his gaze, he tapped his wristwatch at me through the rain. Hurry up, I have surgery this afternoon, and his feet, wrapped in custom-made Italian leather shoes, remained firmly planted just a few steps away from me. I heard a faint, brittle shatter in my heart, a scattering of shattered flesh and blood that could never be pieced together again. He would never wait for me, wouldn't even glance back. My eyes had already embraced his silhouette countless times, and after each wave of loneliness, I would chase after him on my own. But this time, I didn't follow. I stood still, watching him. Without moving, I watched Jiang Junyan's expression shift from calm and indifferent to a frown of confusion, and then to the familiar impatience. Jiang Junyan, let's stop here, let's break up. 9. I once heard a saying, when you're unsure whether to continue a relationship, just look into each other's eyes, because the eyes never lie. And in that brief moment of eye contact between me and Jiang Junyan, his eyes were like a stagnant, lifeless lake, without a single ripple. But I distinctly saw, in the way he looked at Zhou Shiyuan, a shimmering glow, a deep and tender affection. That kind of love can't be hidden. So when he once again left me standing there and looked at me with confusion, I truly had no desire to keep going. And this time, Jiang Junyan finally realized he should turn back and find me. He walked over in a hurry, and as he stood in front of me, his shadow blocked out all my light. Jiang Yan, what do you mean by that? What are you throwing a tantrum about now? I drove all Night through the storm just to pick you up from the hospital. I have another long stretch of meetings this afternoon, and I'm really exhausted. Maybe it's because I rarely argue or raise my voice at Jiang Junyan, but this time I truly got under his skin. What's wrong with me? I lifted my rain-soaked sleeve. Jiang Junyan, after 3 years together, did you ever really love me? You never remember what I like. I hate cilantro the most. Yet every single meal we had together was covered in it. Just because Zhou Shiyuan likes it, and you never remember my birthday either. Every birthday over these 3 years, I spent alone, without so much as a single blessing from you, yet you always manage to send Zhou Shiyuan birthday wishes right as the clock strikes midnight. You care even less about my feelings. When we walk together, you never wait for me. I'm always stumbling to keep up with you, and even today, just after my surgery, in the pouring rain, you wouldn't spare me a single glance back. Through the veil of rain, his usually aloof and composed expression finally rippled with emotion. He stood under his umbrella, silent for a long time. Jiang Junyan, the one you truly love is clearly Zhou Shiyuan, so why insist on marrying me? What, are you planning to wed someone you don't love, then spend your whole life pining for the one you do? Let me tell you, Jiang Junyan, it's honestly disgusting. Who would want to be a tool for you to mourn your ex? Jiang Junyan stared blankly at me, as if he hadn't expected me to say something like that. For a moment, the umbrella tilted. It seemed the scales in his heart were finally willing to tip in my direction for once. After a long silence, he slowly spoke. Jiang Yan, you're just venting. I won't take what you said today to heart. I'll wait until you've calmed down. 10. That night, I didn't go home. When my best friend Gigi found me, I was eating at a street-side malatang stall. Jiang Junyan would never accompany me to such roadside stalls. He said he had a cleanliness obsession and found these places too dirty, so during the 3 years I was with him, I rarely touched such food. It wasn't until Zhou Shiyuan showed off in front of me, talking about how Jiang Junyan peeled crayfish for her when they were dating and took her to try all the snacks around the university town, that I realized there was never any cleanliness obsession. It's just that his favoritism and exceptions were never given to me. Gigi sat across from me, looking at me with a mixture of confusion and shock. You and Zhu Jianyan broke up. Have you really thought it through? I don't blame her for that reaction. After all, back when Zhu Jianyan first appeared in my world and helped me take care of my mom, I truly felt both grateful and deeply attached to him. At that time, I was overwhelmed by the fear of losing my closest family member, desperately wanting someone to lean on, so much so that later, he captured me completely with just the slightest bit of affection he let slip through his fingers. I took a sip of soda, looked at Gigi, and said seriously, yes, I broke up with him. Jiang Yan, do you really not love him anymore? Are you sure you won't regret it? I nodded solemnly. There was a time when I loved him deeply. The brilliance of our first meeting and his companionship during my hardest times kept me going through these lonely years of pursuit. I tried very hard, but with Zhou Shiyuan around, I could never enter his world, nor see through his heart, even at our most intimate moments, when he held me in his arms. But within those dark pupils, there was more compromise, more loneliness, so I kept wearing myself down from within. I began secretly comparing myself to Zhou Shiyuan, and quietly competing with them. In the end, all I got was a version of myself covered in scars, so I gave up. Jiang Junyan is too cold by nature. He doesn't know how to love anyone. Jiang, you're the one who's been wronged in this relationship with him. Gigi raised her soda and clinked glasses with me. Let us congratulate my beautiful Miss Jiang for finally bringing an end to her 3-year-long emotional turmoil. Right here, right now, at this very moment, I've finally and completely let go. Her eyes sparkled. I smiled and clinked my glass against hers. The bubbles burst delicately in my mouth, and suddenly, I felt at peace. Life is too short to dwell on things that were never meant for me. Here's to the past that never looks back, and to the freedom of tomorrow. 11. On the way back, it suddenly began to rain. A ding-dong sounded from my phone. It was a message from Jiang Junyan. It's 10 o'clock at night. When are you coming home? Jiang Junyan still thought I was just throwing a tantrum, as if my declaration of breaking up today didn't count at all. After all, in his mind, he hadn't done anything wrong. He was just a little careless, a bit neglectful in his daily attentions. It's just that I've had some work-related contact with my first love. It's just that I got upset for a moment. I'll be fine once I calm down. He's never taken my grievances seriously. always acting as if I'm just being unreasonable. I ignored him and quickly swiped away the message. A few minutes later, he called again. When I didn't answer, he kept calling every few minutes. Suddenly, I felt a bit like laughing. Jiang Junyan had always been steady and composed. My affairs rarely left a ripple in his heart, but at this moment, he stubbornly called me nearly 10 times. When the last call came through, I picked up. The first thing he said was, "Where are you?" His tone was a little urgent, as if he were really worried about me. Hearing no response from me, he seemed to catch himself and reverted to his usual reproachful tone. "Jiang Yan, are you drunk again? If you end up a complete mess this time, I'm not coming to get you." When I first learned that Zhou Shiyuan existed, I had a huge fight with him, broke up with him in a fit of anger, and then drowned my sorrows at a bar. But back then, I was young and proud. And deep down, I couldn't quite accept it. In the end, I lost my nerve and called Jiang Junyan to come pick me up. I remember clearly that day. His expression was calm and detached when he arrived, but there were dark circles under his eyes. I didn't go home, and he stayed awake for a long time, waiting until midnight, when I drunkenly collapsed onto him and called out his name through tears. A very soft "I'm sorry" drifted from him in the wind. The cold air rushed into my mouth and nose. I let out a long breath and spoke to Jiang Junyan on the other end of the line. "Jiang Junyan, I've already broken up with you today. I'm not coming back. In a couple of days, the movers will come to take my belongings." On the other end of the line, there was a long silence. "Jiang Yan, are you serious?" "Of course, I'm completely serious." I hung up the phone, blocked his number, wrapped my scarf tighter around me, and disappeared into the wind and snow. 12. I've rented a new place, 1 bedroom, 1 living room, nothing as luxurious as Jiang Junyan's penthouse, but more than enough for me to live on my own. After the breakup, I suddenly found myself with a lot of free time. In the past, I used to spend my after-work hours learning various kinds of baking to win Jiang Mu's favor, but now, I have time to do what I love or hang out with friends. Jiang Junyan's mother is a traditional and conservative housewife. She agreed to let me into the family largely because of the meticulous care I gave my own mother when she was sick. She saw me as obedient and easy to control. The first time we met, she made it clear in every possible way that she expected me to devote myself to family life after marriage and focus on being a good wife and mother. So every weekend, I had to get up early and drive 2 hours with Jiang Junyan to the suburbs to visit his parents, listening to his traditional and conservative parents lecture me again and again, listening to Jiang's mother scold Zhou Shiyuan for flying all over the world and never being home, calling him unreliable. Actually, I really don't like it, but because of Jiang Junyan, I never resisted. The good thing is, I'm free now, free both physically and mentally. No one can decide whether I stay home after work or go out to eat with friends, and no one can tug at my heartstrings and make me sad. This Sunday, for the first time, I slept in until 10 in the morning. The moving company called. "Miss Jiang, Mr. Jiang said he won't open the door or let us in unless you come in person." On the other end of the line, Jiang Junyan's cold voice came through. "Jiang Yan, even if you're moving out, at least show up in person to pack your things, otherwise, I'm not letting strangers into my home." By the time I arrived at Jiang Junyan's house, he was leaning against the front door, at a standoff with the moving company. When he saw me appear, his gaze lingered on me for a few seconds. He shook his head slightly and sneered. "Jiang Yan, what exactly did I do to you in the past 3 years that made you block me so fast? Now, when I try to find you, I have to go through someone else just to get you on the phone." Having lived under the same roof for 3 years, Jiang Junyan remained just as arrogant. He was cold and distant, like a mere passerby sharing the same space. Even now, he still refused to lower his proud head. "Jiang Junyan, if that's all you have to say to me, then we really don't need to talk on the phone." I walked past him straight into the house and signaled for the moving company to come in. Jiang Junyan pressed his lips together and said nothing more, but his gaze never left me. He watched as I directed the movers, shifting things here and there. Several times, he seemed to want to speak, his expression tangled with hesitation. The vibrant, colorful clothes in the closet dwindled to only black, white, and gray. The pots, pans, bowls, and plates I had added to the kitchen disappeared one by one from the counter. It wasn't until I started taking down the photo collage on the wall that Jiang Junyan finally grew restless. He stepped in front of me, blocking my way, his height giving him an air of quiet pressure. "What are you doing, Jiang Yan? I'm also in these photos, and I don't agree to you taking them away." Most of these group photos were taken on important occasions. In the pictures, I'm all smiles, always instinctively leaning closer to Jiang Junyan, but Jiang Junyan mostly appears as a cold profile. Somewhat resistant. Over the past 3 years, I've lost count of how many cold stares I endured from him. Whenever I recall those painful and difficult days, a lingering fear casts a shadow over me. I never want to see them again. Jiang Junyan was right, he's also in the photos, so I really shouldn't take them away. So, right in front of him, I tore off every piece that belonged to me one after another. Shreds of paper scattered all over the floor. I took nothing but myself. Jiang Junyan froze. He suddenly seized my wrist, his voice strained. Jiang Yan, his eyes turned crimson. I wrenched my wrist free and gave a bitter, sarcastic smile. Jiang Junyan, you've never cherished the days you spent with me, so why get angry over these photos? After cleaning up, the floor was a bit of a mess. Jiang Junyan frowned deeply, his expression unpleasant. But it doesn't matter, I've already taken everything valuable, the gold jewelry and jade bangles he bought for me. I didn't leave a single piece behind. I've traded my best youth for the deepest lesson, between money and love. I have to have at least one. Before leaving, I gently placed the house key on the table. Along with it, I also left behind the engagement ring. 13. After the last move ended on bad terms, Jiang Junyan never came looking for me again. News of our breakup and broken engagement spread quickly through our circle of friends. Everyone who heard the news expressed their regret. After all, my 3-year relationship with Jiang Junyan had already reached the engagement stage, just one step away from marriage. As for Zhou Shiyuan, on the very first day after our breakup, she posted something on her moments. What belongs to me, you can never take away. V-sign. When a mutual friend told me about it, I just found her amusing. My friend was a bit anxious. You've wasted 3 years of your youth for nothing. All the effort you put in has been in vain. Aren't you afraid you'll regret it one day? I shook my head. During the 3 years I was with Jiang Junyan, I was constantly exhausted from overthinking. During these 3 years spent with Jiang Yan, I have been engaged in internal conflicts. I am like a person on a sinking boat, teetering on the edge of disaster, but since the boat is already going under, I might as well cut my losses and stop while I can. I've finally gotten away from all those toxic people and situations. You should be happy for me. After all, no one should have to carry trash around forever. Right? I said to my friend. My friend gave an awkward smile. Only later did I find out that he was a persuader sent by Jiang Junyan. Every word I said reached Jiang Junyan's ears without omission. That day, the paper he was writing on was tightly crumpled into a ball, but soon, he looked out the window with a hint of certainty. No, she will come back. She simply can't live on her own. Without me, she wouldn't be able to bear it. 14. Unfortunately, Jiang Junyan was wrong. Back when I was with Jiang Junyan, a big part of the reason was indeed that I couldn't bear the loneliness of living alone. I grew up with my mother as my only support. She was my sole anchor. Then she passed away suddenly, and I lost all the strength to keep going. I stayed at home, listless and alone. For a long time I turned on the TV, letting the noise fill the room. An empty house is too quiet. The loneliness is so loud it becomes unbearable. I began desperately clinging to anyone who came close, including Junyan Jiang. It seems that being lonely for too long can slip you into love. I hoped love would fill the void inside me. I had hoped to find in him a source of emotional support and a shoulder to lean on, but in reality, the loneliness I felt when I was with Jiang Junyan was even greater than what I had endured on my own before, because in this relationship, what I gained was more disappointment. Now, I have begun to re-examine what it means to live alone. I've started to acknowledge my own worth. I've begun to accept that loneliness is an indelible part of life, freed from the bonds of marriage and the constraints of being a daughter-in-law in the Jiang family. The possibilities for my life have opened up. I quit my clerical job at the Jiang Corporation. I took my long-dusted certificate and found a job at a company that matched my major. As a newcomer, there was a lot to learn from scratch, so I had to pour all my energy into it. Meetings, overtime, business trips, non-stop. Yet I didn't feel tired, because after all the hard work came visibly thicker bonuses and a different kind of spiritual fulfillment. Half a month later, Jiang Junyan found out that I had left the Jiang family business. That day, when I got home from work, he was sitting in front of my door waiting for me. I worked overtime until 10, and he had waited a long time. It was already early winter, and he was only wearing a camel-colored cashmere coat. Under the light, he looked somewhat thin and fragile. When he saw me, he immediately stood up and stumbled over to grab my arm. Why do you want to resign? He glanced at my shabby room and frowned. Is the salary the company pays not enough for you to live on? I can ask my father to double it. It's not about that. I opened the door and stopped him just as he tried to come in. Jiang Junyan, we've already broken up. It's not convenient for me to host you here. Jiang Zhu let out a soft, dismissive laugh. Do you hate me that much? You'd rather hole up in this tiny place, cook over your own fire, than come back with me? This place isn't necessarily worse than the Jiang household. I looked at him with sarcasm. In the Jiang household, I not only had to endure Jiang Junyuan's cold stares and silent treatment, I also had to sacrifice everything for the family as Jiang's mother demanded, giving up my very self. Jiang Junyuan was a proud and intelligent man. He understood what I said. His face turned ashen, and without another word, he turned and walked away. That night, I received a strange text message. It was from Zhou Shiyuan. In the photo, Jiang Junyuan lay slumped drunkenly in the leather back seat of a car. The light fell from above onto his sharply defined face, and a few buttons of his collar were undone. There were also several obvious lipstick marks beside his lips. I don't know why he was so heartbroken today. It doesn't matter, though. Tonight, we have our ultra-slim zero distance. I let out a soft laugh. Thanks for going through all the trouble to pick up the trash I threw away, and with you cheating so blatantly. Aren't you afraid your boyfriend far away across the ocean will find out? 15. Zhou Shiyuan called almost instantly, raising his voice. Jiang Yan, what are you trying to do? At this moment, Zhou Shiyuan was panicking. The smile on my face was evident as I pulled up the messages my best friend Gigi had sent me on my computer. On the left was a photo of Zhou Shiyuan kissing her mentor, a married man over 40 with a wife and child, by the riverside in Cambridge. On the right was the paper she had published just before returning to China, with data so flawless it seemed almost unnatural. I suppose even Jiang Junyuan never imagined that the outwardly glamorous Dr. Zhou would end up being someone's mistress, both at home and abroad. Zhou Shiyuan's life resume is nothing short of spectacular. During college, while dating Jiang Junyuan, she never lacked for luxury goods, yet at graduation, she resolutely abandoned him for the sake of her future and left without a backward glance. Abroad, she began a relationship with her advisor, who was over 40. Despite the criticism, she gritted her teeth and persevered, securing considerable academic resources and making her path to a PhD application remarkably smooth. But a twisted romance, however thrilling, eventually wears thin. After being the mistress of an older man for so long, Zhou Shiyuan grew tired of it, so, using her connections, she returned to her home country and landed a position at a renowned top-tier hospital. The very hospital where Jiang Junyuan worked. Once again, she started entangled with Jiang Junyuan. Do you really think Jiang Junyuan would care? Her voice suddenly turned sharp. 6 years ago, I was the one who dumped him. I paused deliberately. Do you think you would find being deceived harder to bear than being abandoned? Miss Zhou, since you're so fond of collecting trash, I'll indulge you. But if you have the audacity to disturb my life again, I can't guarantee that these photos won't end up in your hospital's email inbox. 16. After that warning, Zhou Shiyuan never came to provoke me again. Perhaps out of fear, perhaps out of guilt. However, I didn't take such an episode to heart. After bringing considerable benefits to the company, they began to value me more and started including me in some important projects. Late that night, glasses clinked on the dinner table. When it was over, a senior colleague from my team and I saw the last client off into a car. Once everything settled, I was the only one left in the night breeze. Along with a handful of vibrant red roses in my hand, I rubbed my sore ankle, turned around, and prepared to head home. A familiar Audi R8 approached from a short distance and stopped in front of me. The window rolled down, revealing the man's refined and noble side profile. It was Jiang Junyuan. His gaze fell directly on the bouquet in my hand. After a long pause, he finally spoke, his voice laced with icy coldness. Who gave you that? I smiled. None of your business. Jiang Junyuan stared at me intently, his eyes growing deep and unreadable, tinged with amusement. Jiang Yan, is this the reason you've been refusing to come back? Don't you think you owe me an explanation? We broke up just a month ago. I was both angry and amused. Have you lost your mind? Not everyone is like you, getting entangled with an ex while still with their partner. Jiang Junyuan, with a cold face, unbuckled his seatbelt, walked over to me, and grabbed my wrist. His brows furrowed tightly. Jiang Yan, Zhou Shiyuan and I have never crossed the line. After the breakup, nothing happened between us, and I never cheated on you. I have always regarded you as my fiancé. I find it both absurd and laughable. Never crossed the line. Jiang Junyuan, do you take me for a fool? Is the intimate moment between you two at the hospital trivial, or is the fact that you were with Zhou Shiyuan both times you got drunk not compelling enough? Throughout the 3 years we were together, you showed no care or affection, only cold, business-like detachment. Now you're hypocritically saying you've always thought of me as your fiancé. Don't you find that ridiculous? Jiang Junyan was taken aback, a dim look crossing his eyes. Finally, his tone softened. Zhou Shiyuan no longer means anything to me emotionally. I stopped liking her long ago, and I have absolutely no intention of rekindling anything, but no matter what, I hurt you, that I can't deny. I apologize. A shadow flickered in his eyes. It was the first time he had seriously apologized to me and lowered his head, looking somewhat disheveled. As for what you said about me not caring for or loving you, I didn't remember your birthday or your preferences. That was my fault. Not knowing to wait for you while walking, that was also my fault. But Jiang Yan, back then I didn't know how to love someone, and I let you down. Now I understand, and I know how to love you. Jiang Yan, please come back. Okay, that home can't go on without you. We lived together for 3 whole years. How could you bear to? He held my shoulders, looking at me with a pitiful expression, his eyes reddening. It was the first time I saw Jiang Junyan cry. Someone as proud as him, for the first time, had a face full of defeat. He even buttoned his shirt wrong. For Jiang Junyan, this was a huge mistake. How ironic, back when I was with him, trying so hard to please him in every possible way, he just looked on coldly, indifferent. Now that I've left, he regrets it. It's useless. I pushed him away hard. Jiang Junyan, it took a tremendous effort for me to move forward. I won't look back. 17. After that, a considerable amount of time passed before I saw Jiang Junyan again. Mutual friends only told me that he had been very dispirited during that time. He often smelled of alcohol at work, and after work, no one could get him to come out. He always stayed cooped up at home alone. Jiang Yan, he just can't seem to move on since you two broke up. He still has strong feelings for you. He really cares about you. I find it amusing. People who have a clear conscience in a relationship will always move on quickly after a breakup. Only those who owe something to others in a relationship will find themselves regretting more and more after the breakup, unable to move on. That's not deep affection, that's a jerk. As for the so-called caring they speak of, it probably only exists in the empty words coming from Jiang Junyan's mouth. If you truly cared, how could you never consider my low spirits and just let the sadness consume me? How could you let me trot behind while you strode ahead without a care? How could you be completely unaware of whether I was tired, if my shoes were rubbing, or whether I could keep up? But Jiang Junyan didn't have much time to wallow before Zhou Shiyuan's affair as the other woman came to light. That very day, it trended online that Zhou Shiyuan had been a mistress to her supervisor abroad while ambiguously involved with Jiang Junyan back home, and had meddled in others' relationships. Within just 2 hours, the internet was buzzing. She plays mistress to one man today and climbs into another's bed tomorrow. Does she just love being the other woman? They're both trash. If you're willing to be a mistress, you've got no shame. She's probably used to hearing worse by now. This male doctor is absolute trash, can't even get his priorities straight. For a time, Zhou Shiyuan and Jiang Junyan were thrown into the eye of the storm. After the farce, the cheating advisor had his teaching license revoked and was dismissed from his position. Zhou Shiyuan was investigated by the university, had his degree certificate revoked, was terminated from his internship contract, and expelled from the hospital. As for Jiang Junyan, public ruin followed. He was shamed by social opinion and had no choice but to resign. After the turmoil subsided, my best friend Gigi came running over and asked me, was all that online chaos you're doing? I shook my head. Jiang, you're still too soft-hearted. She sounded a bit indignant. Those two are so disgusting, especially that Zhou Shiyuan. She seduces men and then provokes you to your face, and you're still leaving them a way out. I gave a slight smile. I didn't stir up public opinion to cyberbully her, but I did send photos of Zhou Shiyuan and the advisor's inappropriate relationship to the advisor's wife. She has the right to know the truth. Gentleness is my background color, but sharpness is my attitude. I knew from the very beginning that I alone couldn't make waves. After all, I had worked as a clerk at the Jiang Corporation for 3 years, with no family or connections. The news would probably be suppressed by the Jiang group as soon as it was released, but that advisor's wife is different. She comes from a powerful family, is a leading figure in academia herself, and has extensive connections. Faced with her husband's infidelity, never show any mercy. 6 months later, thanks to my outstanding work ability, I successfully got promoted to manager and was about to be transferred out of the city. On the day of my departure, the sky was perfectly clear. Jiang Junyan, whom I hadn't seen for a long time, suddenly appeared at my door. After half a year apart, he looked much more haggard. What are you here for? His gaze fell on the suitcase in my hand, a bitter smile reaching deep into his eyes. I knew you were leaving, so I came to see you off. He reached out, about to take the suitcase from my hand. I politely stepped back half a pace. I can manage on my own. Jiang Junyan's face showed a hint of disappointment he could hardly hide. He once again stood beside me, walking shoulder to shoulder, just like so long ago, only this time, he finally remembered to slow down, as if deliberately waiting for me, but this time, I quickened my pace and walked ahead of him on my own, leaving him standing there in a daze. I turned back, waved at him, and said, "This is far enough, now, I no longer cling to the need to be loved. No longer rely on others to ease my loneliness, and no longer fear loss. I don't care whether he will wait for me anymore, nor do I need a man to deliberately slow his pace for my sake, because I will strive to walk